Key Bar Rule Series. Constitutional Law.
Organizational standing. An organization has standing to bring a claim if 1. Its individual members have standing in their own right, the interests are germane to the organization's purpose, and the case does not require individual participation of the members. Timing. Mootness. The court will not hear a case if the controversy has been eliminated by the time of the proceedings. An exception applies to a controversy which is moot, but capable of repetition yet evading review. State action. A constitutional claim must allege government action, as the Constitution applies to the federal government and state governments through the 14th Amendment. A private party may also be subject to a constitutional claim if 1. The party performs a traditional government function, 2. There is significant government involvement in the private activity, entanglement, or 3. The action involves judicial enforcement of a private contract. Power. State power. 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment provides that powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states. This bars the federal government from commandeering state governments by compelling states to pass laws or perform federal functions. Dormant Commerce Clause. States may not 1. Discriminate against or 2. Unduly burden interstate commerce, even if Congress has not regulated the activity. Discrimination. A state statute is discriminatory if it protects local interests at the expense of out-of-state interests. It is permitted only if the regulation is necessary to achieve an important purpose and no less discriminatory alternative is available. Undue burden. If the state statute is not discriminatory, the law may still be invalid if it causes an undue burden on interstate commerce. Under the Pike balancing test, a court will evaluate whether the 1. State law serves a legitimate local purpose and whether the 2. Burden on interstate commerce is clearly excessive compared to the local benefits. Individual rights. Due process. Under the 5th Amendment, incorporated to the states through the 14th Amendment, the government may not deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Procedural due process. Procedural due process requires a fair process before depriving a person of life, liberty, or property. For a judicial proceeding, a party is entitled to notice and an opportunity to be heard. For a non-judicial proceeding, fairness is determined by balancing the individual interest at stake, the risk of erroneous deprivation, and the government's interest, including fiscal burdens. Matthews factors. Regulation. A regulation is not usually a taking, but it can be if 1. The economic impact is severe. 2. It interferes with reasonable investment-backed expectations. And 3. The character of the regulation is overly burdensome. Just compensation. If a taking has occurred, the owner is entitled to just compensation, which is generally measured by the fair market value of the property at the time of the taking. Equal Protection Clause. Under the 14th Amendment, applied to the federal government through the 5th Amendment, a state may not deny any person the equal protection of the laws. The state may not treat similarly situated persons differently. Discrimination by a regulation can be facial, as applied, or based on disparate impact. The level of review depends upon the class of persons affected. A suspect classification is based on race, national origin, or alienage, and is subject to strict scrutiny, meaning the government must establish that the regulation is necessary to achieve a compelling government interest. Free exercise. The Free Exercise Clause bars any law that prohibits or excessively burdens the free exercise of religion. Such regulation must meet strict scrutiny. meaning it must be necessary to achieve a compelling government interest. However, a neutral law of general applicability which only has an incidental effect on religion need only meet rational basis review. Establishment. The Establishment Clause prohibits laws respecting the establishment of religion. The government may not favor or endorse specific religious groups. If the government action favors a particular religious group, sect preference, the regulation must meet strict scrutiny, meaning it must be narrowly tailored to achieve a compelling government interest. If the government action does not have a sect preference, the regulation must be evaluated based on historical practices and understandings to determine its alignment with the principles of the Establishment Clause. Content-based speech. A content-based speech regulation restricts the communicative expression of the speech. Such regulations must meet strict scrutiny, meaning that it must be necessary and narrowly tailored to achieve a compelling government interest. Forum. Public, designated. A public forum is a place that has traditionally been open to the public for the expression of ideas. Quintessential public forums include parks and public sidewalks, streets. Designated public forums are those areas that are not typically open to public expression but which the government has intentionally opened for expressive activities. These include meeting rooms at public universities. Government regulation in a public or designated forum must be content neutral, narrowly tailored to achieve a significant government interest, and leave open alternative channels of communication.